Welcome to Through the Looking Glass with Moze and Jo. I'm Moze,
I'm Joe.
and yeah, we just wanted to reach out to you guys, talk about our relationship is still going strong. We've been actually getting a lot of good positive feedback on our interracial relationship, and we just wanted to kind of continue that conversation a little bit further, um, more about diving deeper into how we connect and going, I think, past just the surface area of our relationship.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been on my mind a lot in terms of interrelation. It's such a hard thing to say. Interracial relationships being a little bit controversial for some people, and or just not a topic that's really I see being talked about very often. And I think there's just we've been having some good conversations about it. We wanted to share with you some of that, just hoping it's useful for y'all. Um, And I think one of the things that I've really noticed, I've dated mostly white guys previously. I had a relationship with a Latino guy before this. But being with a black man is new for me. And one of the things that I've been experiencing that's been really positive in my life is that when I was dating people who are kind of the same pool of like cultural context, basic assumptions, um, there was something easy about it, but also I really didn't feel like I was being challenged to examine my own biases at all, really. In fact, it was just sort of strengthening them. And there's something to me that I'm finding super important and super helpful about being with somebody whose basic assumptions about life and basic experiences are just coming from a little bit different place. That's having me just like break out of my own socialization more than I would otherwise. And there's something about that that to me is important and powerful. It makes me feel like I get to know myself better because all of us are socialized. We all have like these sets of ideas about how the world is that we're just living inside of all the time. And um, if we don't see those as socializations rather than who we are, there's an aspect of our sense of self or who we really are that I don't think we get to touch into as deeply. And so that's been for me one of the great things about being in a biracial relationship. Um, there's a lot more about.
Yeah, we were also part of, I think, the discussion was, overcoming fear, and also like how that relates to like how you grew up as a kid. A big thing was we're only like one generation away from like segregation and slavery. So if your parents didn't have the opportunity, especially being black, if your parents didn't have the opportunity to migrate from the urban culture into the suburbs or get that like corporate job that allowed them to get the house, you didn't really get to grow up in a place where you were able to break away from the stereotypical black person, or be in a public school or a private school where kids from all over the place were coming in and interacting. So you grew up very like around, and it's the same thing for white people. Is you grew up in like around the same people with the same perspectives that their parents were feeding them based on like how they were raised. And I think, looking back at my childhood, I got to get, my parents never forced anything on me. So I got to like kind of create my own way I viewed the world, and it was never wrong if I just wanted to like hang out with the white kids or Hispanic kids or whoever. It was just like, don't get in trouble. So for me, it was like I just didn't see. I was looking for more connection than I was like, does this person's skin color match the same as mine? And as an adult, that's kind of now. I mean, like that is how I look at things. I'm always looking for the deeper connection, and that's really opened my eyes because like the more we dive deep, most of our conversations are very spiritual, which makes us connect a lot deeper. It makes us have better sex. It makes us have more interesting conversations, compared to where a lot of people, especially in the African American culture, it's like chase the girl with the big booty, and the one who's doing this and that, but you might not really actually have a deep connection with that person. It might be only on the surface, which really won't allow you to vibrationally link up with that person. And our relationship has totally been that. Like, we've been able to just go so deep that, like, it's broken past, like, oh, black man and a white woman, um, where we're now, like, really starting to feel each other. We're really starting to, like, hear each other, and sense each other. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But it took, both of us to kind of step out of our comfort zone and really, like, get to know each other on a deep metaphysical level, past just, like, the physical. And like I said, like, unfortunately, we haven't broken away, from slavery too much. We're still, like, only one generation. And I think the youth today is starting to be able to be the generation where they aren't growing up like that. They're getting to see the YouTubes and the social medias and really interact with each other, where we didn't have that. So I think we have to be the ones to blaze the path, blaze the trail, to open up a new world for them.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, to me, I'm getting a lot of hope because I think that, one of the things that I think keeps tearing humankind apart is that that people gets. I think racial identity is really important in a lot of ways, and racial experience is really important. So I'm not trying to minimize that in any way, but at the same time, I think when we get overly identified to the extent that we can't bridge the gap to another group of people or know how to get along with people who are different than us, I think that's where a lot of humanity's like major issues come from, are wars and hatred of other people, enslavement of other people, is that inability to see others as equal, to see them as the same as us, although different, and as valuable, as valid, as important. And I think, how do we bridge that gap? How do we change our consciousness so that we can live together with other kinds of people and allow them to be different than us, allow them to be beautiful as different than us? And I think, I think there is like wiring in the human brain that makes us want to identify in a small group and see other people as others. But I think it's really a time in human evolution where I'm hoping anyway that we can kind of acknowledge that part of our brain, but also learn some new things. Like, how do we bridge the gap with people who are different than us in a global, a society of humans that's moving more towards globalization? I think it's becoming more and more important, and I think the current generation is going to be more and more dealing with those kinds of things as people are going to space, as people are able to travel between parts of the world way faster. How do you deal with the new people that you're encountering, or the people that you fall in love with, or the new friends that you make, or the new colleagues that you have from all different countries? And so I think, like, learning how to, see past differences, although also acknowledge and respect differences, is really important. And
navigate.
It's a finesse thing, because it's not like all lives matter. It's not like I don't see color. I think that's still an important thing to be able to get, like, that those are really real parts of our lives and parts of our experiences and things that shape us. And at the same time that we're more than that, and that, there are other kinds of ties that are starting to develop in the world beyond just racial identity. There's like a human identity as well. They're both real, and how do we start to, like, make connections, including racial differences and also beyond that.
Not jumping to conclusions. I think, especially with us, it was like, taking a step back and really hearing the person, and not, letting them speak or, tell their story, but then, like, after that day it happens, still, like, giving them space to, like, develop, and I'd be like, oh, that's just the way they are, and just write them off. I think we're quick to judge, and jump to conclusions and just react out of fear, instead of, like, you don't know what that person's going through if they had a bad day, so you need to give them space. Earlier this week, we had an issue, and the best thing I could do was just, like, kind of just give her some space and, like, let her figure it out. And then when she was ready, then we could communicate. But I think, like, we're so quick to be like, oh, that person in a hoodie is gonna rob us, or oh, that person waving the rebel flag just wants to, like, shoot a black person. I think it's, instead of, like, jumping to those conclusions, we need to let that person, like, tell their story, give them space, respect them as a human being, and understand that they might have gone through trauma. They might have grown up around racist people, but they don't want to. They don't know how to break away from that. There's just so many things, and we're just such a dynamic species that like we have to dive deeper. The only thing that's going to solve these issues is us really getting out of our comfort zone and getting to know each other. And I think we are doing a smash awesome example of that, instead of like just arguing and or jumping to conclusions. We're like really working through these things and listening to each other and finding ways to connect instead of things that divide us.
Yeah. And I think like pride and humility, like these are some of the things that really are challenging. Like I think a lot of us have pride and don't want to acknowledge things that we have blind spots about or aren't good at or don't have never thought about before. It's humiliating, and I think just I've found that being humble in those places, like I've had to, I think I mentioned in the last video we did, I've had to look at a lot of things around like totally invisible white supremacy that I've been living inside of and had no idea about for a lot of my life. White fragility. I'm used to, like every emotion and feeling that I have being like so precious, and I'm with somebody who has like this sort of warrior spirit who's like also because of his life experiences had to kind of like not just let his emotions be like so precious in a way. And so we're like trying to meet these things, and like both are valid, but like for me there's something that actually feels really, really good about getting humble instead of like hanging on with all my might to like my pride about where I've been in the past. It's like just acknowledging that and just being able to say like, look, I've been clueless, I've been ignorant, whatever. There's something so freeing about that, and to keep returning to that because it's not like a one-time thing. It's like over and over and over again I have to just say like, shit, I don't know, or shit, like
you gotta let go.
Fuck, I've had racism in me that I wasn't even aware of, and there's like after I can do that, or on the other side I feel like there's just, it's like a really actually pleasurable feeling somehow because I can feel like a much more free and open and like learning, growing human, and then like we can connect so much better when I can do that. So
absolutely,
it's hard, but it's super important, for anyone. It's not just white people; it's everybody.
Yeah.
But, as white people, we have a big responsibility for that right now.
And I think also the same deals, like where it's so easy to roll my eyes and just being like, oh, she's so spoiled, or oh, she just doesn't know, and just kind of write her off. But like, then I'm like, you know what? I need to listen and understand where she's coming from because like she hasn't had any other experiences outside of this, and and to understand, like, hey, that's where she's coming from, but that's not who she is. And to watch her change and go through these things has been so refreshing because it just shows if you really work at it, anyone can do it. We are so adaptable as as a human race, to be able to change, not like a drop of a hat, but over time. And I think if you really care and you really work at it, these are things that I'm starting to see, and it's been just a breath of fresh air to watch Joe, kind of deal with these issues, and not be afraid to take them head on. And it's just kind of opened my eyes that like, hey, like we all really need to all step back and like do this within ourselves of like, hey, maybe sometimes I do come off a little brass, and maybe I need to like slow it down a little bit and be a little softer on certain issues and topics. So yeah, I think we're just at a point where we want to just share our thoughts with you guys and our relationship, and really kind of blaze the trail for the youth, because I think they have the opportunity to like not have to deal with the issues that we dealt with growing up and still deal with, where they get to kind of be more free than any other generation that has come before them, but we have to be the ones to kind of show them the way. So we enjoy it. We appreciate you guys, and we hope to talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for checking out our videos. If you like them, let us know. We really appreciate if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's like a way to let us know you want us to keep going and do more.
Absolutely.
So give us a shout out, give us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace.